What's up, guys? It's Toad back with you. I haven't, I have not left my desk. No, I did sleep a little bit, but I'm right back here. Whatever. Forgive my appearance, I guess. You're not here for my appearance, though. Thanks for everybody who hung out last night for the college football show, where I added a play on the fly, and that play has changed slightly because I mentioned that you could wait on that one and probably get potentially the better number on that, which did happen. So once again, my college football plays. And these lines have moved a little bit. A couple of them in my direction, and the other one I think was just you could get a better number because the public is coming in on it. Colorado, I took laid -11 a while back, a couple days ago, but it's at 13.5 now. It's hitting 14 though, so if you did want to play Colorado, I think the cutoff for that one would be like 13.5. Like, don't lay the 2 touchdowns if you can help it. Maybe find some creative ways to play Colorado if you do like that side and you can't get the better number. But I think the 13.5s are still out there, and I don't hate it at that number. I am on Florida +4. It looks like it's 3.5s everywhere now, but I think that's also fine. And then Stanford, I mentioned, this is the one that I added last night as I looked at that game. I took a second look at that game. You saw me do it on the show, and I was like, man, this is a better spot for this than I thought it was. And it was at 20.5 last night, but I was like, there's no reason to really play it right now because it might hit 21. It is at 21 right now, so you can grab Stanford 21. I did it. Stanford +21. So those are the 3 college football plays. For the analysis on those, go check out my college football video from last night. George Schneider, what's up, man? I would love to have John Rocker on Tower Gang or Better Off Dead. He'd be better suited for Tower Gang, obviously. That would be incredible. Cole is actually a Braves fan. Clint is a longtime baseball fan, and so am I. Clint loves John Rocker. I mean, so do I. So good morning, Charles. Thank you for hanging out again. You were here last night as well, weren't you? I think you changed your profile picture again, though, from your lovely face back to a vehicle, I think. All right, let's get into it. Yeah, Rocker. I'm growing to like him as much as possible, pretty much. I was more like neutral or so, I would say, on him back when I used to watch baseball, but now, yeah, I really do like him. Yes, sir. All right, so I'm not going to rehash the college football slate because, like I said, you can go watch the show from last night. I got to get into all this stuff from today, man, although almost all of my plays today are in college basketball besides the college football, so I have 10 plays now today, 3 college football, 6 college basketball. This is what happens, man. It's college basketball Saturday. I usually wind up with 4 to 6 plays every week in college basketball. And I have 1 hockey play, and I'm staying off the small NBA card. And hockey, it's a big Saturday card, but I don't love the hockey. But I may just talk about some leans quickly. Basketball, I'm not really going to talk about too many games aside from the games that I'm playing because there aren't a whole lot of big games in college basketball today. It's early season. It's still a lot of the small guys playing. A couple of the big guys are getting in the mix here. I mean, South Carolina, Indiana is one of the better games on the board here, so maybe I'll just mention that one real quick. But Indiana, I mean, they're the better team, but they're not a huge favorite, sitting at 7.5, ticking up with juice on it. 62% of the tickets, 83% of the cash on Indiana. I don't really have any, situational read on this game, really, but it is one of the couple of biggest games. Indiana hasn't really played anybody significant yet, so this is going to be their first step-up game. South Carolina, I mean, they haven't really either. They lost to North Florida to open the season, which was a little bit strange, I would say. I don't know what's up with this. Dude, South Carolina, this Murray Boyles guy here, I don't know what is up with this hairstyle that's common in college basketball now. It's a chick hairstyle, dude. Stop being gay, bro. Just get back to the manly hairstyles, man. Just shave your head, whatever. Even if you want dreadlocks, don't do whatever this shit is. You look like a girl. Just, I don't know. It pisses me off. I don't get it. But South Carolina, yeah, whatever. I mean, that's what's going on in that game. And then the other game that might be like one of the biggest games that we have here is Colorado State and Ole Miss. And this game is a neutral site game, but it's in the state of Mississippi. So Ole Miss is like a semi-home in this one, even though they're listed as the road team here. Ole Miss is the better team, and they're up from 3.5 to 5. 60% of the tickets on them, but 69% of the cash coming in on the other side, taking Colorado State, I guess, at the bigger number. I don't have a read on this one either. Colorado State, they might be taking a step back, though, after last year. Like, looking at Ken Palm's rankings, they look a little bit down this year compared to what they were last year. But the public might remember what Colorado State was last year and think, oh, this is a good team. But then even if they were, the Mountain West seems to always like fail once they get to the tournament and have to play other conferences that are better than they are. They tend to bomb out. So I don't know. Colorado State, they haven't faced anybody significant yet. And they're coming off a game where they almost got caught against Denver, kind of. I mean, Denver kind of hung in that game. Colorado State was a huge favorite there. Denver, of course, is an in-state little brother there against Colorado. So maybe Colorado was looking ahead to this Ole Miss game, and maybe they'll be focused here. I still don't even know what this is, this game, because it doesn't look like it's one of these early season tournaments, but it's in South Haven, Mississippi, which is not where Ole Miss is, which I think is in Oxford, Mississippi. So I don't know what the deal is here. Ole Miss is still the better team, though, and they are ranked. I don't think the ranking is necessarily not indicative of what they actually are. Ole Miss is actually coming off a couple of lackluster games where they didn't play well at all against Grambling. And then that was the game I went against Grambling the game after that because Grambling almost beat Ole Miss. And then Grambling got destroyed by Florida. Although Florida didn't cover the number by that much because it was a huge number. But Grambling, I mean, they hung in this game partially because Ole Miss plays slow tempo, ugly games. And that allowed them to kind of hang around in that game. And Florida does not. But Ole Miss, yeah. And then Ole Miss didn't play that well against South Alabama either. Coming into this game, I mean, neither of these teams have really done anything impressive so far. So it's tough to gauge what's going on in this game, but it may be one of the better games on the board. You're a Braves fan as well. Nice. Yeah, him complaining about New York City was awesome. I love it. What's up, Johnny? You bought a fish tank and frog food. All right, those might be my children. I don't know. You got tadpoles going on there. You're a female frog. Are you hitting on me? What's going on? What's up, Zach? Shaved head since 12. That is wild. I don't know if you're lying or not, but that is wild. I first shaved my head at 18, right after I graduated high school, just to see what it would look like, just to do it. But I had a thick head of hair, man, and the back of my head is still really thick. It's just it thinned in the front, so my only option was to just shave it all off. But I did shave it that one time at 18. I let it grow back, and I still had the full head of hair up through the time that I was like early 30s, and then it started really thinning in the front, and then I had to do it. So that's what has happened to my head. I had to start shaving it just because of that, but it's thick everywhere else, man. Thick. What's up, Rich? That is the truth. Wow, that's crazy, man. You don't see too many bald 12-year-olds walking around. Did you have cancer or something, Zach? Is that why? people looking at a bald 12-year-old. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I can't believe this has happened to you. How's the chemo going? All right, let's not take too long with this. Let's try to get into some of these games. I'll talk about a couple of games that I almost was going to play, and one of them was the game with South Alabama here, because I do think that they may be in kind of a tough spot coming off that big Ole Miss game where they hung in that game at Ole Miss and came to within 10. Yeah, in Oxford, Mississippi, I was right. They were hanging around in this game, man, and they were within one score with like a few minutes left in the game. So this is a close game for South Alabama. And they also didn't shoot well at all in this game. 28% from the three-point range really kind of sticks out, and they turned the ball over a bunch. Ole Miss didn't turn it over very much. So some things in that game kind of indicating that maybe South Alabama is due to actually maybe bounce back in some ways. But still, that was a huge game when they hung in that game. And tough game coming off of that. I don't know if they're going to be able to get right back up and play well again against Mercer. And Mercer really has not had a difficult schedule so far. And the only big conference team that they played so far was the awful DePaul team, who looks like they don't even belong in the Big East. And Mercer lost that game by 31 points. And then they've won against two non-Division I teams. So I don't know about this Mercer team, man. And they do play South Carolina up next, which is going to be another big step-up game. I mean, South Alabama is actually probably not as good as DePaul is. Just, South Alabama is a Sun Belt team, so probably not as good as any Big East team, really. But still, we don't know who Mercer really is yet at this point. But South Alabama does look like they're maybe in a potential fade spot there, sitting at a 4.5-point favorite. I haven't played that one. I'm not going to do it, but that was one that I was potentially considering. And then Kansas, I will say Kansas and Michigan State are both playing today, and they're both coming off a game against each other. So it's like possible that you could say they're going to be in maybe like a potential letdown spot or hangover spot coming off a big game there where they played each other, but they're playing against Oakland and Bowling Green, so it's going to be a big spread on both Kansas and Michigan State, so I'm not going to get involved in any of that crap. No thank you, but Kansas State is coming off that game, or Kansas, and Michigan State are coming off that big game against each other, so take from that what you will. And Oakland, I don't even know if Oakland still has that guy that they had last year where they made that they got into the tournament and then they upset Kentucky, and they had, what was the guy's name again that was hitting all those threes, the 3-point specialist on Oakland? I forget his name. I don't even know if he's still there or if he graduated or what, but I'm not going to really pay attention to it. And then the other game I was looking into where I was like, man, that could be a potential fade spot is to fade Hampton, coming off a game where they played Providence pretty tough. I mean, this is a low-scoring, ugly game. Providence plays a lot of low-scoring, ugly games. Hampton was kind of hanging around in this game, late into this game, man. They were within a couple scores late in the game, still within like 5-6 points in the final 5 minutes. So Hampton, and they're winning throughout the middle of the game. They shot terribly in this game, too, and still hung around against Providence. So kind of similar to that South Alabama game. And now they get Norfolk State, and Norfolk State is coming off their first loss, which was against an in-state, almost, I would say, a little brother at this point. I don't even know, actually. William and Mary is probably still better than Norfolk, even though Norfolk is always one of the best teams in the MEAC. It's still the MEAC. The MEAC is not a good conference, so take from that what you will. I guess that Norfolk did lose to William and Mary. I pointed that out on my show that I thought it was a spot where it made sense to play William and Mary, even though I didn't, because Norfolk was coming off beating a bigger in-state big brother in James Madison. Coming off that, I thought they were in a letdown spot, and it was their first road game, and they did lose that game. It could be a potential bounce back for Norfolk now, and this is also the first conference game of the season for these two teams. MEAC starting early with an early season conference game here between those two teams. So I do look to the Norfolk State side there a little bit just because Hampton, excuse me. I get those two teams confused because they're both H's. Hampton coming off that game where they played tough against Providence, and Norfolk looks like there could be in a bounce-back spot. Odds makers telling you they're the better team, up from 2-3 on the road at Hampton. Looks like the cash percentage might actually be coming in on Hampton early, though, but I lean to the Norfolk State side in that one. Yeah, you look like Caillou. I hope you're not as much of a dick as Caillou. Or not you, Charles, but Zach, I guess. Zach with the mohawk there in his picture there. He looks like that skull. Caillou was one of the worst characters ever, dude. Caillou is, he is so despicable. Like, he's just this, like, asshole, basically. I don't know what else can you say about that? He just expects everything to, like, to go his way, to come to him, man. Fuck Caillou. Terrible, terrible character. Should not be using him to teach children anything. Ban Caillou, man. He should go the way of all the books that are trying to trans children and whatever. Ban all Caillou. You hate hair. That's good that you have a great head of hair and hairline, man. But you hate your hair so much you just cut it off anyway, even though you have great hair. Shannon, what's up? I haven't seen you in the chat before, have I? For Better Off Dead? I don't know. Maybe I have. It's been a while, though, at the very least. If I actually dial that number, will I get you? What do I have to admit to you? I don't know. Is that a... are you going to, like, drug me or something with truth serum, and I have to tell you all of the truths? Miami Hurricanes and Miami Dolphins. I am not a Miami Hurricanes fan. I will throw that out there. Never been a fan of Miami in football or basketball. I think Miami's football team is overrated. I apologize. I think Miami Dolphins, they still have a chance to make the playoffs, in my opinion, though. The Dolphins. With Tua back there and at full strength, I actually think Miami might be able to catch some teams off guard throughout the rest of the season. I think Miami is not actually done yet. Yes, Caillou's the worst. Demon energy, that's true. Yeah, you wish I wasn't clothed. I wish, what do I wish? That it was a breastfeeding hotline. I call those anyway, man. Yeah, all the teams are sucking. Well, Miami was without, the Dolphins were without Tua, so. And Miami Hurricanes only have one loss. I just think that they're way overrated and haven't faced a very difficult schedule. And they should have lost to Cal. I should have gotten the money line cash on that one. I did get the spread play right on that one, though, which was most of the bet. Your daughter was the age to watch Caillou. Oh shit! Did you you watch Caillou with her? Oh man, don't be teaching her to be like Caillou, man. All right, let's get to my actual plays because I got a lot of them. College basketball starts in a half hour, by the way, but I'm not on any of the games in the 11 a.m. slate. There are 2 games at 11 a.m. Eastern. I'm not playing those. Pacific Coast 8 a.m. college basketball starts. Good luck with that. My first play is probably my least favorite play, but I'm playing it anyway, and that's Wofford plus 26.5. There are a few reasons why I do like this one. This is against Duke. I mean, obviously, if Wofford is a giant underdog like this, you know I'm playing against one of the big guys. This is the earliest game I'm playing. It's up in an hour and a half at noon. I'm going to take the points, man, with Wofford. Duke, I think they're in a sandwich spot, and it's possible that they don't, have full focus in this game. I mean, Duke, they know they just need to show up to win this game pretty much. So are they really going to care that much about blowing out Wofford? I'm not so sure about that. Wofford's not that bad a team for the conference that they're in. They've been a good program in the SoCon for a while. The SoCon has some good teams that tend to be competitive in the tournament and stuff too. This Wofford team won in the tournament a few years back against Seton Hall, I believe. So they're not a program that's a pushover. That conference is pretty good, but look at the spot that Duke is in. And, I was going to mention Ken Palm, by the way, has this line at 20, so nowhere close to the 26. So I don't think you're getting any value on the Duke side. In fact, I think the books are having to skew the number towards Duke significantly, even though I think Duke is actually deserving of their ranking at number 6. I think they are a top 10 team at the very least, possibly a top 5 team. Duke, very well balanced right now. They've reached a point where they're one of the best teams in college basketball, again, in my opinion. Very balanced team. But Duke is coming off a game where they lost to Kentucky, and I don't consider this to be a bounce-back spot after that. I think that was a game you get way up for. That's a big game, man. Kentucky likes to try to make you run. That was in the State Farm Championship Classic, man. Champions Classic. I mean, that was in Atlanta, Georgia, so that was a big step-up game for both teams, man. I think they're probably playing in the Atlanta Hawks arena. They're a huge game for both teams. Big ranked matchup. And Kentucky's a team that likes to make you run. Duke was winning throughout most of the game. Duke was actually kind of being able to slow the pace down to their style to some extent, but Kentucky was able to overcome them and beat them in the end. So I do want to look to fade Kentucky whenever they play next. They don't play today, though, so I don't know when they play. They're playing Lipscomb in 3 days. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm actually going to get involved in that one. But Duke, again, they're coming off a game where they blew it against Kentucky. I don't know that they're going to get back up and have a full focus game against Wofford coming off of that. And up next, they have Arizona in 6 days, but still, I mean, that's a huge game. And then Kansas after that. So they're playing all these, top teams in college basketball, even though I actually think Kentucky is a little bit overrated, even though Kentucky did beat Duke. Duke is the better of those two defensive teams. I'm kind of surprised Duke fell apart in that game. I had mentioned that game on my show, and I liked the Duke side in that one, but I didn't play it. But Duke, yeah, coming off of that and having these other big games coming up next on the horizon, they might not pay full attention to Wofford, and Wofford might consider this to be a little bit of a big brother, little brother situation, even though I think Wofford is in South Carolina and Duke is in North Carolina. But Wofford, it's still the Carolinas. And Wofford, I think they're going to be focused, and I'll explain why I think they're going to be extra focused, not just because it's a big step-up game against Duke, but for other reasons as well. Oh, and look, Kentucky has a dude with the girl hairstyle as well. Get rid of it, man. Ban it. Duke, yeah, so that's what you have going on with Duke. And the other thing about fading Duke laying a huge amount of points like this is that Duke plays at a very slow tempo, and they play really good defense. So a team that is defense-oriented and plays ridiculously slow and likes to slow down the game, they're going to have a more difficult time getting over a huge number like this. So even if Duke is going to win this game, even by 20 points, I mean, it's going to be difficult for a team like that plays slow, ugly games like this to actually get up and over this huge number like this. So I think that's also a factor here as far as why I like Wofford to cover this very large number here. And Wofford, I think Wofford does play at a somewhat slow pace as well, so they're not going to be thrown off by Duke trying to slow the pace down. I think Wofford does actually prefer to play at a slower pace as well. And Wofford, they don't look good so far. They're at 1-2. I don't know. They lost to Lipscomb. I mean, Lipscomb is probably one of the better teams in the A-Sun. That was a game where Lipscomb was actually favored against Wofford. So it was kind of a game where it was an expected loss for Wofford. But then Wofford, they're coming off losing to Presbyterian, man, as a road favorite. Wofford lost to Presbyterian, which Presbyterian, are they in South Carolina as well? I don't know, but they might consider themselves to be a kind of a little brother type of situation there against Wofford too. The Presbyterian Blue Hose. That is their name, man. They're named after pantyhose. Not whores, but pantyhose. I'm not even joking that they're named after some like Scottish like leggings. I don't even know. I don't know what the deal is there, but Presbyterian, they're not a good team. Wofford losing that game, a game that they probably should have won. I think Wofford got caught looking ahead to this big game against Duke, and I think Wofford's going to bounce back after that. I mean, that was a bad performance from Wofford. They tried to come back in this game after, actually, they were winning a lot of the game. They blew it in the second half. Wofford did allow a 50% three-point shooting percentage from Presbyterian, though, so that's a little bit out of control. I mean, that's something that kind of makes that game somewhat of an outlier there. And Wofford shot actually pretty poorly from three-point percentage, like more poorly than I would expect, 32%. So kind of outlier three-point shooting in this game kind of contributed to what happened in this game. Wofford actually did out-rebound them at the very least. It was still I mean, they're the better team, but they just got caught, lost that game. So I think that puts Wofford in a bounce-back spot. So I am going to be on Wofford plus all the points here. It's already down to 24.5. It's down from 25 to 24.5. Still hanging at 25. I still like it at plus 25. I mean, for all those reasons, like I said, KenPom lined this at 20. So the line is pretty high on Duke here based on recency and just what we've seen so far out of these teams. And because it's Duke, the odds makers are going to throw some extra points on the Duke side because of that. 94% of the tickets coming in on Duke and 100% of the cash. I mean, this is one of the first, I mean, the cash percentage is not accurate, but you know Duke is going to be public at the very least. This is one of the first college basketball Saturdays, so the public's probably going to come in, and if they are out there in Vegas and they want to get it started early, they're going to be like, oh, Duke, yeah, let's play Duke. Yeah, whatever. So yeah, I like Wofford there. Paul and Tyson, I talked about that last night, but I liked Jake Paul to win that one, and I was right about that. Yeah, you're right, Mark. It looks like 25s are out there right now, so I caught it at a good time, I guess. South Carolina is the lesser Carolina. Well, in basketball, that is definitely the case up against, I mean, it's between them and UNC, right? Bye, Shannon. Thanks for hanging out. Yes, we did talk about the fight during my college football show. Go watch that, and you'll get my college football analysis as well. Nobody born before 1980 should be allowed to run for political office. I don't know about that, man. We got to give a pass to guys like Thomas Massey and stuff because he was probably born earlier than that, right? Rand Paul. I mean, you got to give some of these guys a pass. I'll give Donald Trump a pass, actually. Fuck it. Why not? All right, yeah. So Wofford is that first play up there. Next up is a money line play, only because the money line was actually a better price than what the spread was. I'm playing UMBC on the money line at minus 105. I mean, there are like minus 1.5s out there, but the best I found was like minus 1.5, minus 110 and whatever. And then I saw a pick'em minus 110, but I'm like, why is this book giving you a pick'em minus 110 and then this other book has a money line at minus 105? I mean, it's because it's a different market, but the money line and the pick'em price, I mean, it's the same thing. You're just playing them to win the game. So if the money line is cheaper at another book, that's what I'm going to do. So UMBC money line minus 105. If you want to play them at pick them at whatever, minus 1.5, whatever it is now, I don't hate that either. I like this side, man. It looks like they've gone from an underdog to teetering on kind of being a favorite. It's a pick 'em price still. This is fading St. Peter's more so than playing Maryland, Baltimore County here, but I like the spot, man. So I'm jumping on UMBC here. This is at 2 p.m. Eastern. I think it's a bad spot for St. Peter's because they are coming off a game where they played another step-up game, man, and they've been playing surprisingly well as an in-state little brother, though, at the very least. They played Seton Hall really close, but it looks like Seton Hall kind of sucks this year, man. I mean, this Seton Hall team, I don't know if this was actually as good as it looked back when it happened. St. Peter's hanging with Seton Hall, barely losing that game. I mean, Seton Hall, they've been total ass. They lost to Fordham and Hofstra. I know Seton Hall is playing all these ugly, low-scoring games, but Seton Hall, I think they're not a good team this year, man. Sorry to say, but St. Peter's, yeah. So a couple of things factoring into that game. Seton Hall is probably not as good as maybe we thought they might be to start the season, and that was an in-state little brother situation where St. Peter's is going to step it up. Then they lost to UMass Lowell, who's only a good team for the American East, basically. They're not a horrible team. And then they had another step-up game at Rutgers, and they played this game tough as well against Rutgers. They were hanging in this game, and St. Peter's was winning this game by 1 with 4 minutes left, and then they didn't score again for the rest of the game. Excuse me. They gave up 11 straight points down the stretch to lose the game and just totally fizzled out and lost in another big step-up game. This is a bigger game than the Seton Hall one, kind of, because Rutgers is a ranked team. Rutgers was favored by more. Rutgers is probably the better team than Seton Hall. Seton Hall just been playing terribly recently. So this is a big game for St. Peter's as well, even though I know they're 0-3, and they're probably not as bad as that record would indicate. But how do you get back up off the mat and turn around again after this? Another step-up game against an in-state big brother, and maybe an even bigger brother, like I said, than Seton Hall is this year, Rutgers. You hang in that game, you have a chance to maybe win that game and pull off a huge upset, and you just fall away, man. Rutgers shot horribly from three-point range in this game at 18.8%. No team is going to be able to sustain a three-point percentage that low, basically, except for maybe like the absolute worst three-point shooting teams in college basketball. So now St. Peter's, yeah, they are battle-tested and they're stepping down in class here, but this is a 4th straight road game coming up, that huge game. Like I said, again, how do you get back up and prepare for this game against UMBC? I don't know, even though UMBC has a good record, but they've played a bunch of cupcakes, so there's nothing that you can really gain. We don't know if they're any good at all. Beating 2 non-Division I teams, getting absolutely blown out by Penn State, and then in their most recent game, they beat a beak. They beat a very weak Coppin State team, blew them out. But at the very least, I think they get that first Division I win out of the way, so that's a good win for them nonetheless. I think that helps them kind of sustain some momentum into this game. So I like UMBC for all those reasons. The other reason I like this and why I don't think that this is as good for St. Peter's is those games that St. Peter's was playing really close against those bigger teams. Those are against slow-paced teams, man, especially Seton Hall, but Rutgers as well. Those teams don't like to push the pace. Guess who does, though? UMBC. They play one of the faster-paced games in college basketball, and at home, they're probably going to be able to shift the tempo and push the tempo, and that is not what St. Peter's wants to do. St. Peter's wants to play in a lower-paced, slower-paced game. UMBC wants to run, and if they're able to do that and throw St. Peter's out of their element, I think it's going to be in their style of game, and that gives them an edge as well. And at home, it's more likely that that's going to happen. The home team is always more likely to be able to control the pace of the game. Ken Baum, I think, has this game right around where the number is, I believe, like right around a 1-point game one way or the other. So give me UMBC in that game on the money line. Next up, Abilene Christian -1.5. I know when I put these up, you're probably like, what the hell is Toad thinking in these games? Well, I mean, there's a method to my madness. I know I've been terrible in college basketball so far, but we have a chance to have a good college basketball day here with 6 plays out there. We could start turning it around right away. College basketball is higher volume than almost every other sport, man, because there are so many games to look at. So the fact that I'm 4-10-1 right now, even though I did start out at 2-1-1, I'm on a 2-9 run. I hate it. I know I was 0-3 last night, but it's going to pick it up, man. And the market looks like it's in agreement with some of my plays here, and it looks like it's in agreement with this one. And I'm reading into the situation, man, and I like the situation a lot of these. I'm fading Texas State. I'm taking Abilene Christian. They flipped from a 2-point dog to a 2-point favorite, but when it's within that pick the winner price and you're still getting it at less than a bucket, -1.5s I think are still out there. I like it. If you can't find the 1.5s, maybe an Abilene Christian money line. If you can find that at a -120 or something, like a cheap price, that would make sense. Abilene Christian's got 67% of the tickets, but 77% of the cash on them. And I think they might consider this to be a little brother situation because Texas State has been a better team than them in the state of Texas, and they're in the better conference in the Sun Belt. It's a more competitive conference than the WAC, I think, which is where Abilene Christian still is, but maybe they've shifted around. I don't know. I'd have to go look. But The odds makers are telling you that Texas State is the better team. I mean, because Abilene Christian's not getting full home court advantage here, but still, I mean, I think it's close. I think these teams are close in power rankings, and it's enough that the situation puts this over the edge for me, and you're just playing pick the winner here. I'm going to take Abilene Christian. Texas State, they're playing their second straight road game. They had their first step-up game of the season, having to go to TCU, and they only lost this game by 5 points. They were winning the game at halftime. They're a 15.5-point underdog. I mean, going to TCU, I mean, that's a big game, man. You're a little brother in the state of Texas here. And TCU did start, like, blowing them away in the second half, but Texas State did not go away, and they were back to within 4 points with a minute left in the game, a minute and a half left in the game. So they were still in this game, man, and they did not let up. They played a full effort in this game. They played right to the wire. TCU did shoot ridiculously in the game, though, 53.8% from the field, and Texas State shot badly from three-point range at 29.4%. So in some ways, it looks like maybe like some outliers there that made the final results what it was, but still, this is a huge step-up game for Texas State, man. And coming down off of that, I think they might be in a hangover spot coming off of that, man. When you are a little guy like that and you play one of your big brothers like that as a big underdog and you take them almost right to the wire like that, it's not a good situation coming back out and having to play again. And by the way, Texas State, they kind of like to play a little bit of a slower pace. I think I'd have to go look at Ken Palm again. TCU does not like to do that, I don't think. TCU likes to play a little bit faster, but guess who likes to play even faster than that? Abilene Christian, and they're at home, so this is another tempo clash here where Abilene Christian likes to play fast, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I can go look. I mean, even though I don't like to do it because I pay for Ken Palm, but let me just look here. Abilene Christian, yeah, they play at the 106th fastest tempo, so that's still in the faster range. TCU actually a little bit slower at 144. I thought they were a little bit faster than that, but never mind. But Texas State is not as comfortable. Texas State is at 287, so they like to play way, way slower. Abilene Christian is going to try to speed up this game. Texas State playing 2 straight games against teams that like to play faster than they do, and Abilene Christian likes to play significantly faster than that. I think the pace collision here might be on the side of Abilene Christian, too, if they're able to control the pace of this game. So give me Abilene Christian there, and that one, and Abilene Christian on their side. Let me see. I forgot if this was. I don't know if this is going to be considered to be a sandwich, by the way, for Texas State, because they do have Bradley up next, and Bradley's been a pretty good team so far this season. But I don't know if that's cause for a look ahead. But Abilene Christian, they're in kind of what I would just say it's a momentum spot. They've not won a Division I game yet, though. So you could take that as maybe they're not as good as we look or as good as they might look, or we don't know who they really are. But I think at the very least, after that bad loss to Middle Tennessee, they got back on the winning side of things, beating some Division II school probably in McMurray. But that's still going to be a game that might help propel them into this game, some momentum here. And I think they might step it up when they have Texas State coming into their house. And Texas State, like I said, has been a decent Sun Belt team, even though Abilene Christian actually has made the tournament a couple of times more recently than I don't know if Texas State has actually ever made the tournament since they've gotten up to Division I. But still, I think Abilene Christian does have reason to show up in this game, and the market looks like it agrees with it. So Abilene Christian is the play in that one. Yeah, this is all madness, man. This is November madness, basically, at this point, with all these games on the slate here. Next up, Long Beach State -4.5. Obviously, I like every one of these plays that I'm playing. This looks like a huge market agreement on this one. They're up from 4 to 5 now with reduced juice, so the 4.5s are probably still predominantly out there. This is a major fade spot for Portland, and Portland looks like they have the public ticket percentage with 62% of tickets on them. Long Beach has 71% of the cash on them. This is one of my favorite fade spots of the day to fade Portland here, man. I like Long Beach in this one. People are going to look at this and think, oh, these are 2 1-2 teams, and look at what Portland just did. So the public, if they're looking at this game, is going to come in and think, yeah, there's value in taking Portland here, because look at what they just did. They just came off a game where they took Oregon into overtime at Eugene, Oregon. That is crazy, dude. But are they even really that good at all? I don't think so. I mean, they beat some non-Division I team by only who was this, Lewis and Clark? Yeah, they only beat them by 13 points. Then they got absolutely annihilated by UC Santa Barbara, who is one of the better like Big West teams. But they lost that game by 41 points. I mean, that's not indicative of a good team. And I'm going to tell you right now, Portland is not a good team. But this was like their game of the year, man. They stepped up their effort in a major way against Oregon. And I think Oregon just didn't pay any attention to Portland, man. I just think that they were just kind of cruising along, and they just didn't take Portland seriously at all. And Portland, they're going to step it up because they're an in-state little brother there, and Oregon is the big guy in the state of Oregon. And Portland, man, I mean, they were a 26.5-point underdog when the game went off, and they took this game into overtime. Like I said, Portland was winning for almost the whole game. Oregon just not taking them seriously. And then Oregon had to make a late comeback. Portland was still winning the game by 5 in the final minute. They blew the game, and then Oregon just totally destroyed them in overtime, 13-3 in overtime. Portland just completely ran out of gas at the end of it. That was a game of the year, man, for Portland. They're not going to be able to match energy like that, I don't think, ever again this season. And Portland is so bad that Ken Pom has them ranked in like the 300s out of 350 whatever Division I college basketball teams. They're a low-tier college basketball team, man, and that was a major outlier performance. They really stepped it up. They are a worse team than Long Beach State, man. Long Beach, I think Ken Pom has them probably in the 200 range or something like that, and Long Beach has faced a more difficult schedule. I mean, San Diego State on the road and only losing by 1. South Dakota State. Excuse me. South Dakota State is not a bad team. Neither is San Diego State, but South Dakota State's not a bad team. San Francisco actually looks like they're off to a really nice start. The San Francisco team looks like they're a contender in the West Coast Conference over there, whatever the hell it is, with Gonzaga over there. That San Francisco team looks like they are for real as well. So I'm not going to blame Long Beach State for that, but it also does mean that Long Beach State is coming off an embarrassing result, losing that game by 30 points to San Francisco. San Francisco was a 15.5-point favorite there, so I think that's more indicative that San Francisco is actually just really good this year, and Long Beach State is not great, but they got blown out in that game. And even though I know they have Gonzaga next, I think Long Beach State's going to show up for this game, and it's their first Division I home game, and they're coming off an embarrassing 30-point loss. Long Beach State's going to be angry, and I think they're going to take out their frustrations on this Portland team that is really not a strong team. And Portland, like I said, they're coming off such a major effort game. This is a giant hangover spot that Portland is in. So give me Long Beach, probably my favorite of these plays. Great side to take on Long Beach, if I might say so myself. Give me Long Beach. No, Nate, I'm going to talk about hockey in a second, but my hockey, I only have one play in hockey, and it's a total. It's one of my patented totals, and hopefully it hits, but reduced pulp juice, yeah. By the way, if you take pulp out of your orange juice, you're a pussy. I'll just put that out there. You've been distracted. No, I've not talked about hockey yet. I'm starting with the big college basketball slate, and then I'm going to talk about NBA very briefly because I hate the NBA card. The NBA card is all teams in bad spots playing against each other, and then hockey, I might talk about a few leans in hockey, but I only have one actual play. Yeah, that's right, F. You can start the tower there, man. But yeah, Long Beach, I like that play a lot. Next up is Liberty -1.5, and this is mostly a play just because of the spot that Florida Atlantic is in. Liberty is already up to 2 with juice, though, so it's looking like you might have to lay -2.5 with them now. They're getting a little bit of the public action, 89% of the tickets and 98% of the cash on them as well. This might be a case where the line is kind of still all over the place because they were a 2-point underdog and they flipped to a favorite here, and I'm obviously agreeing with this move. I like Liberty in this one because of what Florida Atlantic did last night, but Liberty, yeah, you'd have to get on this like probably soon because the line looks like it's continuing to go up, and play it whatever the best way is. Maybe a money line might make sense on Liberty as well. I don't know, but I was able to find the 1.5. There might still be 1.5s out there, but this is a neutral site game in Charleston, South Carolina, so it is at least closer to Liberty, I think, than it is to FAU, because FAU, I think, is down in southern Florida, I'm pretty sure. So this game is a little bit closer to Virginia, where Liberty plays, but this is a neutral site location. This is one of those early season tournaments. This is the Field of 68 tip-off, so this is like, what does that even mean? These are the bubble teams. the teams that are expected to be contenders, to be bubble teams to make the tournament. I mean, that's kind of condescending, right? Or it might like kind of jinx you, like, guess what, guys? We think you're good enough to maybe make the field of 68. Oh, no. I think I'm actually surprised that FAU is not a little bit more public here, even though I know Liberty's 3-0. But this is Florida Atlantic, man. Everybody's seen what they did the last couple of years. They made the tournament 2 years in a row. They made the Final Four 2 years ago, and then they got back to the tournament, and they had a lot of returning starters from the Final Four team last year. But now I think some of those guys are gone. So FAU is taking a step back this year, but still, people do know that probably, but still, I expected FAU to maybe be a little bit more public here. But looking at FAU, they haven't really been impressive so far this year, man, even though their 2 losses were close, like road games or neutral site games against some decent teams in UCF and Charleston. So I'm not going to knock them for that, but their wins weren't that impressive either against an Indiana State team, which does not have Robbie Avila anymore, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, which, by the way, I'm going to talk about this because this like threw me off in a major way and like leads me to believe that we're in a simulation and the simulation creators are fucking with us. Because look at this. So Robbie Avila, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was on Indiana State last year, you guys know who I'm talking about, the big white dude with the goggles, really good player in college basketball. He transferred to St. Louis this year, trying to stack their roster there in St. Louis. He moved up to the A10 conference. He got hurt in their opening game against Santa Clara, and he's not going to be back until at least December, it looks like. He had a bad ankle injury, I think. And after Avila got hurt, St. Louis's next opponent was Avila. What the fuck? Like, I don't even have anything to say about that. Just, I don't even know, man. I'm speechless. When I looked at the schedule, I was like, huh? Like, that's just totally bizarre. Your star player gets injured, and then the team that you face next is some unknown non-Division I team whose name is that guy's name. Okay. I'm at a loss for words on that. St. Louis, by the way, is playing Loyola Marymount today, and will still be without Avila in that game, and I have no read on that game, but I just figured I would point that out because it's so insane. Back to this FAU Liberty game, though. FAU did beat that Avila-less Indiana State team, who looks like they're way worse without him there. They're taking a major step down this year, it looks like. So still hard to gauge what this FAU team really is. But FAU, this game last night, this was a double overtime game last night, a game that went into the 110s, the 1-teens. They lost 119 to 116. How do you turn around and play again the next night after you have a game like this? Like, you're going to completely lose gas, man. Like, how do you have any energy left after you play this Charleston team? Charleston is known for really playing up-tempo and pushing the pace on you. That was a ridiculously fast-paced game. Florida Atlantic, I think, does also like to play fast as well. So this was a game that just turned into a ridiculous, like, run-and-gun type of game, just up and down the court. A game where you run all over the place. You expend a lot of energy. And FAU had to make a comeback in this game late, too, to even send it into overtime. They were losing most of the game to Charleston, who was a pretty decent team. And Charleston wound up winning dramatically with a 3 at the end of double OT. This is crazy, dude. So how do you get back up off the mat after that? If you're FAU, and FAU shot out of their minds in this game, 55.3% from the floor, 55.2% from three-point percentage, that is not going to happen again. So the public, I would think, would be looking at this and thinking, holy crap, FAU is playing all these games where they're scoring like almost 100 points in every single game. Like, they can't be stopped right now, even though they lost this game. But I look at it and I think, how the hell are they going to have any energy left playing with no rest, having to come off of that, playing another game in this, I think this is all in the same tournament, the Field of 68 tip-off here. And up after this, they do have to play Oklahoma State, and this is a game where they're going to Charleston to play in this other tournament, the Shriners Children's Charleston Classic. So they're probably raising money for Children's Hospital there. So for a good cause. But still, this is like, I mean, this is crazy, man. So they might even be looking ahead to Oklahoma State because it's one of the big guys. It's a Big 12 team. So FAU, they might just have run out of steam here. I know Liberty is a decent team and they're undefeated, but they may overlook Liberty. Liberty's played a weak schedule, basically, so far. I mean, Valpo, not a strong team. Seattle is actually a pretty good team in the WAC, and Liberty went out to Seattle, I think. Or this was in the WAC Conference USA Challenge, but it was in Seattle. It was at Seattle's home stadium there. And they were able to win that game. Seattle, still not a bad team, though. But Liberty, I think, is maybe actually better than what we think they are right now. They're not a bad team. They're coming off just kind of a momentum continuer against whoever the hell that was. Some Carolina University, some non-Division I team. But Liberty has 3 days off, man. So if FAU had to play yesterday and played that ridiculous barn burner game while Liberty had the day had 3 days completely off. So which of these teams do you think has the better rest scenario coming into this game? The only question is Liberty going to have any rust here? But I think Liberty's going to show up for this game, man, because it's FAU. Everybody's seen what they've done the last couple of years. And the other thing that I like about this is that Liberty, this is a complete clash of styles. FAU wants to run, and Liberty wants to completely slow the pace down. And in a game like this, neutral site, it is easier for the team that likes to slow the pace down to get control of the pace of the game and slow it down. So Liberty might be able to do that. And FAU, as tired as they are, might wind up falling into Liberty's pace, Liberty's preferred pace. And if that happens, it might be an advantage to Liberty there as well. So I like Liberty in that game, man, for all those reasons. Looking at Charleston real quick. Charleston doesn't play today, by the way, so FAU really drew the short straw, having to play immediately right after that, where Charleston actually gets the day off, and they play Liberty tomorrow in this tournament. I mean, that's crazy. So give me Liberty in that one, or give me death. And then my last college basketball game, UMass -5.5. I like this one too, man. I mean, these spots are coming to me today, and I like these. UMass looks like they're up with juice now, 5.5 with juice. If you have to lay the 6, I mean, I would say go for it. Not a huge difference there. 67% of tickets, 71% of the cash on UMass. It does look like the money is coming a little bit on UMass. I like the UMass side in this one, and I think the records might be a little bit misleading here as well, because the public might be coming in, even though it does look like the public ticket percentage is on UMass, because they are the bigger name at the very least, and they're in the better conference. But UMass is sitting at 1-2. Hofstra is undefeated 3-0, but UMass is the favorite. So, I mean, the odds makers are obviously telling you that UMass is actually the better of these two teams. They are. They're in the better conference, but it also means that they may have just faced a tougher schedule so far, and Hofstra has faced an easy schedule so far to some extent. Not that easy, but, I mean, Hofstra started out beating Old Westbury, whatever the hell that is, I assume that's Westbury, Connecticut, as I said on one of my other shows that I don't even know. Easy win there. Then they beat Iona in a bad spot. I was on that game. I was on Hofstra in that game because Iona was in a bad spot coming off a big step-up game against Princeton, where they almost upset Princeton. So I thought that was a bad spot there for Iona. So Hofstra was able to take advantage of that bad spot there. They were the better team anyway, and they won the game. And then what did Hofstra do in their last game? They beat Seton Hall in this ridiculous, ugly game where neither team even got to 50 points in this game. It is so bad for Seton Hall now that Hofstra was favored against them. Seton Hall is terrible this year, man. What can I tell you? I mean, I think if you go look at Ken Baum, I think Ken Baum has Hofstra ranked in like the 90s. He's got UMass in like the 70s. They're actually not a bad team. And I think he has Seton Hall not even in the top 100 teams. I mean, that is just sad. It is a sad state of affairs for Seton Hall, and Hofstra was able to win this game against Seton Hall in this Icons of the Game tournament or whatever it was in Uniondale, which I think is Hofstra's home court there in Nassau, because Hofstra is in Nassau County, I'm pretty sure, on Long Island. So I think it was at Hofstra's home court, but the line was indicating that Hofstra is basically the better team over Seton Hall, which may be true, but that's still I mean, when you're Hofstra, and they were losing most of this game to Seton Hall, but Hofstra, that's still a huge game for them, man. You get a Big East team coming into your house and you beat them. That's pretty good, man. Hofstra really didn't play well in this game, and they still won. Just a massively ugly game. And coming off of that, I think it's a kind of a hangover spot, man. And look who they have up next. This is their first true road game, I believe, having to go to UMass. I don't think this is one of those early season tournaments. It is not. This is at UMass in Amherst. So it's going to be probably a crazy environment there at UMass. So first true road game for Hofstra. And up next, they have Florida State and then Houston coming up after this. This is a bad spot for UMass, man. And I'm going to have to look it up because I forget, because one of the teams I'm fading also has to go to Myrtle Beach.
they get to go down to the beach after they play whatever game they're playing today. So I forget which team it is. One of the teams that I'm going against does have a spot, is in a spot where they have to start another tournament up next and go to Myrtle Beach, which might be something that they're looking forward to as well. But you'll have to go back and look because I forget which team that is. But Hofstra, I mean, up after UMass, they have to play Florida State and Houston. So they might be actually even looking ahead a little bit in this game too. This looks like a sandwich spot between a Big East team and an ACC team and a Big 12 team. It's a step down in class, but UMass, man, I think they're going to be looking to turn it around here because they just lost to Louisiana Tech. And Louisiana Tech is actually a good team in their conference there. I think in the CUSA, they're not a bad team, but still, UMass, I mean, that's not a game that UMass necessarily should have lost. Although Louisiana, LA Tech, I mean, was actually the favorite in that game on a neutral. But UMass, this was actually at Hofstra's stadium as well. Hofstra is actually hosting this tournament, but I think UMass is going to get them in this game. UMass shot terribly in this game, dude. 38% from the field and 23% from three. That's kind of an outlier. That's not going to happen, and that's like an unsustainably low percentage. So they looked worse than they actually are in that game, and I think it puts them in a bounce-back spot. But also, look at what they were coming off of. They were coming off a step-up game where they went to Morgantown, and they played West Virginia, and they got kind of blown out in this game, but they didn't go away, and they made a rush late in the game and tried to get back in the game, and they got back to within 6 at the end of the game, and the West Virginia had probably just kind of packed it in for the day. But UMass, that was a big step-up game for them, but they put in a full effort against West Virginia, and that was the most difficult game that either of these teams has played this year. So UMass has faced the more difficult schedule than Hofstra, and that explains, I think, why UMass wasn't really ready for Louisiana Tech, because they were coming off that huge game in Morgantown where they didn't let up, and they almost were able to do something there. So coming out of that, I like UMass to bounce back in this one, man. You can explain why they had a very off game against Louisiana Tech. Give me UMass minus the points in that one. Homeboys, UMass, minus 5.5. It's just me in the simulation. Yeah, this is the Tocha. I know, it is weird, isn't it? The Avila thing, it's bizarre. Yeah, Wiener's Wiener, Slick Willie, Gettings Willie, Slick, I know. Myrtle Beach, yeah, Myrtle Beach is definitely gross. There are I watch a lot of true crime, and it seems like there are a lot of, like, sex offender crimes that happen. There were dudes, like, abduct young women. Man, I would not want to be in Myrtle Beach. I've never been to Myrtle Beach. I've only flown over it, but I probably would not want to go there. But I am an ugly, fat man, though, so I'm probably not at risk if I go there. But why would I want to? All right, let's move over to, we'll talk about the NBA, just because I don't have any plays here. Try to get this done. This will be like an hour video. NBA, we have kind of a small card today, and there are some teams that I think are in bad spots. I'll talk about some of these situations, but they're all in bad spots against each other. And I'm like, does that mean you should take the over in some of these? I don't know. I mean, maybe, but I'm not a totals guy in the NBA, man. I'm trying to become a totals guy more so in hockey because I seem to be right about a lot of them. But let's look at some of these games real quick. Toronto at Boston. I mean, I would lean against Boston here just because, I mean, Boston's coming off an easy win over Brooklyn, but that was a game where they took Brooklyn lightly the first time, and then they didn't do it the next time. They were coming off an ugly loss to Atlanta. So the Celtics bounced back, and they blew out Brooklyn, even though it was on a back-to-back, which was kind of expected. But now they host Toronto, who's one of the worst teams in basketball. And who do they have up next? A game I'm going to be in attendance, by the way. I'm going to the Boston-Cleveland game here, Celtics-Cavs, where Cavs are likely to still be undefeated coming into this game and will be an underdog against the Celtics. The Celtics could be looking ahead, man. The Celtics might come into this game, and it might be one of those stereotypical Celtics games where they don't pay attention to their opponent, and they do just enough to win the game, and they're looking ahead to this much bigger game against Cleveland. I would not want to lay the points with the Celtics in this one. I don't think they'll lose, but it's a 17-point spread. It's up from 15 to 17, 55% of tickets on them, 60% of the cash on the other side on Toronto. I lean to the Toronto side in this one. Like I said, it's a look ahead for the Celtics, but Toronto is in a back-to-back, so they're not exactly in the best spot, and they got caught last night. I'm mad that I didn't play Detroit last night, man. I should have played Detroit last night because look at the spot Toronto is in. I don't know what I was thinking. Toronto came back home from a road trip that took them out to Denver and to the Pacific Coast. They returned home and they lost to Detroit, who's been playing better basketball, really, but that was a bad spot for Toronto. Returning home from a road trip and with Boston up next, a look ahead to Boston. A weird, single home game. I should have played Detroit in the game, man. I apologize for missing that spot, but I think when I looked at it, my thought was that, well, I don't want to play Detroit either because Detroit was coming off back-to-back overtime games and playing a third game in 4 days, all in different cities. So it wasn't the easiest spot for them either. And playing Miami and Milwaukee both into overtime, those are big games too. So Detroit wasn't in exactly the greatest spot to play them, but Toronto was in the worst spot. So a game I should have at least pointed out yesterday morning for last night's NBA slate. But Detroit, by the way, 6-8, man. This Detroit team, they're no longer a laughingstock, man. They're not a bad team. Cunningham is a really good player. This Detroit team, they're moving along. They're not bad. You don't hate to see it. But yeah, I mean, Boston, I think, is still in the worst spot, but there's no way I'm going to play Toronto in a game where they're on a back-to-back like that. So no thank you for that. And it might make sense to take the over. It's up from 229 to 229.5, but 67% of tickets on the over and only 56% of the cash. So I don't know. Like I said, the only NBA totals I usually do are in the playoffs when I know how to gauge which game of the playoffs it is, and the totals make more sense to me in the playoffs. LA and New Orleans, I mean, this looks like a spot where you got to pay attention to the injury report in this one, because it looked like maybe it was going to be an injured player theory spot to fade New Orleans here, because New Orleans, this is a bad spot for New Orleans as well, because they just beat Denver. I mean, they broke a long loss streak. They played a lot of good teams mixed in here too. So New Orleans, I mean, once they start getting these players back, they're going to be an undervalued team, I think, in my opinion. But in this game, I don't think they really are. They're coming off a huge win over Denver. They're on a back-to-back. They beat Denver last night. So even though it is LeBron coming into their place, are you really going to turn around and be able to play right away again? And you have Dallas up next, who you haven't played yet this season, the returning Western Conference champs. And I don't know, man. I don't know if New Orleans is going to actually be totally focused on this Laker team that, even though it is LeBron, they're actually a little bit of a lesser team than Denver and Dallas, just because of kind of what Denver and Dallas have done recently, even though I know LA has the better record than those two teams right now. I don't know that that's totally legitimate, but New Orleans could be in a letdown spot. And then as far as the injury report is concerned, you got to look to see CJ McCollum, is he coming back or is he not coming back? Because he is a key piece of this New Orleans team here, man. Zion Williamson is not coming back yet. He's still out. But McCollum, if he comes back, then you might be looking at a reverse injured player spot where he is a star player on the Pelicans, man. If he comes back, they're going to have to work him back into the rotation. If he comes back, you're going to see the line move a little bit in the direction of the Pelicans, and it might move too much, especially because when he first comes back, he might not even play a full slate of minutes, right? They might ease him back in. They might work him back in. So you got to pay attention to, is he coming back or not? If he does come back, does the line move too much in the direction of the Pelicans? And then I would say it might be a spot where you fade the Pelicans. And I'm still saying that maybe it is, because they're coming off that big win over Denver. So playing the Lakers might make sense in this game. And if McCollum comes back, I actually kind of like the Lakers side even more, because you might get extra value, but maybe the line is already accommodating, or is already moving to accommodate for that, because the Lakers are down from 8 to 6.5 now with juice. 84% of tickets on them, but 92% of the cash. So the Lakers, they're a public road favorite. I mean, of course they're going to be public, but the public is not always on the wrong side, and in this case they may not be. It might make sense to look to play the Lakers side in this one, but I'm not going to quite get there with it. But if McCollum comes back, it might throw an extra wrench into the Pelicans' chemistry there. The Lakers, I would say they do just kind of have momentum right now, but they are in a back-to-back and a third game in 4 days, all in different cities. So they beat Memphis at home. They went out on the road and beat San Antonio, but only beat them by 5, and it was not a game where LA really played like their best game, though. Spurs are not that bad a team, though, with Wemba kind of, he's really kind of taken off there. San Antonio's starting to play pretty well, but LA, coming off of that, I mean, I don't think that's a huge win or anything like that. So I think the back-to-back scenario that they're in is not as bad a spot as the spot that New Orleans did. They're both in back-to-backs. So who's in the worst spot? An LA team that maybe didn't put in a full effort against San Antonio last night, or New Orleans, who put in a full effort and upset Denver last night? Yeah, you know the answer to that. The Lakers are in the least bad spot, the less bad spot out of the two. So I lean to the Lakers, but I'm not playing it. Yes, that is, I am very sleep deprived, man. Don't bet against Boston. I mean, the Celtics, there are definitely spots where you can bet against the Celtics. There are spots where they really don't show up, especially as a home favorite against some of the lesser teams. Yeah, nobody is sitting. Yeah, people can walk around and just ignore my NBA handicapping, right? Bronny, I mean, yeah, that was a waste of a draft pick, dude. I don't think Bronny is ever going to be good. I think it's just stupid. I don't know what they're going to do. And then Utah-Sacramento, this is an interesting game that I'll just talk about because both of these teams are in bad spots as well. Utah, they're coming off the game that I played them in the other night, and they upset Dallas. And now they're coming off of that. So they're coming off a couple big games in a row against Phoenix and Dallas. They could be in a letdown spot, although it is the start of a road trip. And usually teams are focused in that first game of a road trip, and it is a Sacramento team who's not a bad team. But are the Jazz going to maybe like run out of steam coming off that big win over Dallas? I don't know. So there are potential positives and negatives to the spot for the Jazz here. So I don't really want to necessarily fade the Jazz here. In Sacramento, they're in a spot where they played last night. They're in a back-to-back. They're in a third game in 4 days. They're in a fourth game in 6 days and a fifth game in 7 days. You don't see that very often, man. A fifth game in 7 days. And they played Phoenix in 2 of those games. They played Minnesota into overtime last night and lost. And 2 of these games in the stretch went into overtime. This Sacramento team is in a terrible rest spot, man. And coming off that game last night where they played into overtime, and Utah at least didn't play last night. This is a huge game that went into overtime for Sacramento, and they wound up losing the game. They made a huge comeback in this game, too. They were losing this game by almost 20 points, basically. Came all the way back, sent it into overtime, and still lost. I think Sacramento is in the worst spot here, man, coming off of that and in that horrible rest spot. So I would look to maybe take the points with the Jazz, but the market has driven the Kings up from 8.5 to 11 on this, 71% of the tickets and 81% of the cash on them. So I'm just going to say no thank you on this one because I don't really want to play the Jazz either in a spot where they just pulled off a huge upset. So I will pass, but playing the total over might look like a way to play this game because you got 86% of the tickets, 92% of the cash on the over here, and the line's gone up from 225 to 229. I wouldn't want to really play it over 229, though, necessarily. I mean, maybe you can find a better number than that out there because that line, these totals move fast, man, and that line, you've lost some of the value on the total if you do like the over there. But the over kind of makes sense because the Kings are going to be so gassed. Like, how are they going to play any defense in a rest spot like that? And the Jazz aren't exactly in the best rest spot either. So the over might make sense in that game. Yeah, this is my weaponized autism just out. What's up, man? And let's finish this. We'll go a little bit over an hour here. We'll finish with the NHL here. I was going to comment on a few NHL games, even though I know college basketball just started as far as the teams playing each other here. As far as, the games that started early, the 11 a.m. slate, excuse me. I'm not in the right mindset. I'm thinking about what I'm saying about NHL already. I'm out of my mind, man. I can't think about multiple things at once. But yeah, what I was going to say is, yeah, there are 2 games already being played in college basketball right now. So you can jump in and turn that on right away already. We got games starting early, man. Islanders, I think, are in a bad spot here against Seattle, but the line has moved down from Seattle minus 125 to minus 106. 54% of tickets on the Islanders, but 73% of the cash on the Seattle side. I agree with the cash disparity in this one on the Seattle side, even though the line has moved down on Seattle. I actually do agree with fading the Islanders here. I don't think it's a strong play, but the Islanders are coming off playing Edmonton into overtime, and then they went into Vancouver and beat Vancouver. And they played New Jersey into overtime before that. So they're coming off 3 big games in a row, man. And coming out of that, I think they might be in a bit of a hangover spot and a letdown spot off of beating Vancouver 5-2. Vancouver did play with some physicality in that game too. So Islanders could be in a bad spot here. It will be Sorokin in net, I assume, because he plays most of their games in net. They used Varlamov last night. Sorokin has been the better of their 2 goalies recently, although they've lost a couple of their recent games with him in net, but a couple of those are those overtime games against good teams. So Sorokin will be back in net, which is probably a good thing for the Islanders, and it means that they'll have a rested goalie at the very least here, but they're coming off a big win, man. So it could be a letdown spot for the Islanders. Seattle is kind of just playing with some momentum right now, beating a couple of bad teams after they won a big game against Vegas in overtime. They did not suffer a letdown, and they beat Columbus and Chicago. So momentum for Seattle. It does look like Decord is playing again in net because he usually plays like at least a few games in a row. But Seattle does have the Rangers up tomorrow. So does that make this a look ahead? Are they going to be overlooking the Islanders a little bit and looking ahead to the Rangers? It's possible. So I'm just going to not get involved in that one. Edmonton-Toronto is a big game, and Edmonton's up from -113 to -142 now. 67% of tickets on them, 94% of the cash. Big move on the Edmonton side in this one, and I may agree with the Edmonton side in this one. Edmonton's starting to turn it around after an ugly start to the season. They've won 3 games in a row, but they did go into overtime in their last 2 games. But they are starting a road trip here, so that is a focus spot usually. You go out on the road, you tend to refocus a bit, and playing, Nashville into overtime is not exactly the greatest performance, and Picard was in net in that one, so Skinner will be back in net for Edmonton, I assume, in this game, so it will be the better of their goalies coming into this game, and Toronto, I think, is not in a great spot, as they do have more rest, but they're coming off a big overtime win over Washington in this weird one single game road trip, I should say, to Washington, and then coming back home. But they do have a couple days off. It's not really a return home for a road trip. And do you really have a letdown when Edmonton is coming into your place? Maybe not, even though they do have Vegas up next. But Edmonton is probably still a team that'll draw your focus. But all that being said, I do kind of agree with the market read in that one to the Edmonton side, but you're paying a real price for it now. You're paying dearly for it at this point, man. Columbus, Montreal, I mean, this is a game between ugly, ugly teams, but, I mean, there could be something to read into in this situation here. Montreal is down from -130 to -110, but they do have 66% of the cash on them, and 50% of the tickets is evenly split. So even though the lines are down on Montreal, it looks like the actual cash is coming in on the Montreal side and fading Columbus. And I may agree with it. I mean, Columbus just returned home from a long road trip to play one single game yesterday, and they beat Pittsburgh. And when you're Columbus, I mean, you'll take any win you can get, man. That's a pretty big win against Pittsburgh. They at least are a big-name team with Sidney Crosby there and Malkin still there and whatever. You beat them 6-2. You might be feeling a little bit good about yourselves. And they are starting a road trip, which, again, like I said, does tend to be a focus spot. But this is a back-to-back, and they do have Boston up next, even though I know Boston hasn't been playing well. But if you're going to overlook one of these two teams, it's probably going to be Montreal, who's been one of the worst teams in hockey. Although Columbus is still also one of the worst teams in hockey. Montreal, I don't want to play them either, though, because they're returning home from a road trip with only one day off where they went all the way, as far as they went was to Minnesota. But still, I mean, they're returning home from Minnesota. Kind of a tough game where you step up your game usually, but they lost 3-0. They come back home and they face this ugly Columbus team. They do have Edmonton and Vegas up next. So this is a bad spot for Montreal, too, where they could potentially overlook Columbus. So what do you do in a game like this? Potentially the over would make sense here. Do I want to actually play 2 overs here? Because I do have an over in the other one. With both teams looking like they're in bad spots and they could kind of be gassed here. This total is flipped from 6.5 juice to the under to 6.5 juice to the over. 82% of the tickets and 96% of the cash on the over. So it does look like the money is coming in on the over. And this is not my overplay. My overplay, the line has actually moved against me, but I'm still doing it. Do I want to play the over in this one too in Columbus, Montreal? I don't know, man. That's a tough one. Do I have to handicap this on the spot? I don't even know if Montembeault is playing tonight or not. Let me see here. Let's see. It looks like maybe, I'm probably going to skip this one, but maybe, I don't know, man. I'd have to look into it a little bit more, but we'll see. I don't want to waste too much time on this, but I would lean to the over in that one at the very least. I think both teams are kind of in bad spots there, and it might make sense to maybe play the over in that one, but over 6.5 is a little bit worse than playing the over 6. I mean, really not, though, because, like, the odd numbers tend to be key, right? Because you need that one more goal to win the game, right? So the odd number is what puts the game over the total. What's up, Mark? You like the over in Columbus? Yeah, I agree with it. 6%, I don't know. How many millions is that? The Blue Jackets have been good on the other side. What do you mean on the other side? They've been good as far as like scoring. Well, their goaltender situation is also terrible. You know what? Fuck it. Let's do it. Let's play 2 overs. I'm not even looking at this one as much as I should be, but I like it, and the line is moving in that direction. I'm going to try to find the best number that I can on this, but I'm going to actually do it. Handicapping right on the fly, man. Over 6.5, and I don't know if it's going to be a -110 or what. There you go. Columbus, Montreal. Now I'm up to 11 plays today. Over 6.5 in Columbus, Montreal. I'm no longer the Undertaker, man. At least not in hockey. My specialty is identifying overs when I see teams that are in bad spots. And then I got to talk about Winnipeg, Florida, right? Just because this is a huge game. I mean, I don't really have that much of a read on this, but both these teams are coming off losses. So Florida down from -144 to -136. So they have 67% of the cash on them, 61% of the tickets on the other side, on the Winnipeg side. People are probably hailing this as a Stanley Cup preview. Both these teams are off a loss. Winnipeg is off the loss to Tampa, where I said that I played that game. I played Tampa. I won the bet on Tampa. I gave that out on the show. Winnipeg was in a sandwich spot, man. I mean, they played all these big step-up games. Colorado, Dallas, Rangers, and then Tampa was coming into that game with a week off and having gone into that week off losing 3 or 4 games in a row. So Tampa was in a huge bounce-back spot. Winnipeg was in a sandwich spot because they had this game coming up next in 2 days against Florida. So that can explain Winnipeg's loss there. So Winnipeg, I mean, they could bounce back from that. I mean, a lot of times when a team loses and they haven't lost in a while, you see that might hang them over a little bit, but I don't think that's going to happen when they're playing Florida here, man. So I think Winnipeg is probably going to be ready to show up in this game again. But on the other hand, Florida is also in a bounce-back spot. I mean, they just lost twice at home to New Jersey, and maybe they were looking ahead to Winnipeg, but they lost by a combined score of 10-3 in 2 games against New Jersey, and one of the games was with Bobrovsky in net. Actually, the worst of the 2 games was with Bobrovsky in net. You can kind of give them a pass for losing with Knight in net, but with Bobrovsky there, that's crazy, man. So they wound up losing that game. So I think Florida is in a bounce-back spot, too, because that was such an ugly game. And this is going to be the last game of this homestand here, and they do have to go out and play Winnipeg again next. So Florida may be in the more embarrassed spot here, so maybe the Florida side does make a little bit more sense to play in this one, but I'm not going to play the game, but this will just be, it's probably the best hockey game on the slate here for today, man. So I think that's probably all the games I really wanted to run down in this on the slate here. Even though I know Dallas, Minnesota is also a big game. I don't know if I have anything to say on Dallas, Minnesota. I know I'm going with this is a long show, man, but it is the College Basketball Saturday show. And by the way, once college football ends, I'm going to switch to doing college basketball on Friday nights probably just because it's so much to do. Dallas is coming off absolutely blasting Pittsburgh and Boston, and now they go back out on the road to face Minnesota, but it's not like they're going to overlook Minnesota with how well they've been playing, so I don't think Dallas is going to be in a letdown or anything like that. And Minnesota, they returned home, and they had an easy game anyway against Montreal. That was a spot where it looked like maybe you could potentially fade Minnesota in the return home spot with Dallas on deck, but Montreal sucks, and Minnesota was still just able to win easily. So neither team is in a particularly bad spot here, in my opinion. Minnesota, having won that game, and now it's their second game back home, which tends to kind of be a positive spot for a team, but only really if they played ugly in that first game. But the odds makers are telling you something with Dallas being -140 up to -150 on the road. 76% of the tickets on them, 91% of the cash on them. So it looks like some legitimate money is coming in and playing Dallas as a road favorite. So even though Dallas has the worst record of these two teams, the odds makers are telling you that they're enough of the better team that they are laying a road price. So take from that what you will, but the odds makers are kind of telling you something. So looking at the market read, which could be the clincher as far as which side I would lean to in that one, I might lean to the Dallas side because of that. Thanks, Mark. I'm super sharp. I'm trying to read into all these, skip it. I'm trying to read into all these, 2 trap teams. Well, both I like playing overs with two bad teams because they're the public tends to think, oh, these teams suck, they can't score, but it also means these teams don't have good goaltending, they don't have good defense. The Blue Jackets really don't have good goaltending. I mean, Montembeault for Montreal's not as bad, but yeah, I don't know exactly what you're trying to say, Mark, but I think you're in agreement with me on this one, so thank you, sir. I don't know if I'm sharp as far as getting the best numbers or anything like that. Toad the Undertaker, yeah, is like the wrestler. I mean, I guess I could maybe look like him a little bit just because he dresses up. Yeah, I'm dressing up in that costume would help me. Florida's second line center. You know more about this than I do, Mark. You're on your game in hockey, man. It's a coin flip game. I don't know if being without your second line center is going to be that big of a deal, though, because hockey, you have so many guys going in and out and lines changing. I don't think that's really going to have that much of an effect. You like Dallas, so we're in agreement on that one, too. All right. I mean, I'm not playing this. So the Wild play a little bit slower. That is true. Okay, missing Zook. I don't even know who that is, but recent injury. It depends how recent, though. I always talk about the injured player theory spot, but it doesn't matter as much in hockey. Like in hockey, when your star player goes down, yeah, I mean, it might be an injured player spot where you might play well in that first game, but the line doesn't adjust as much in hockey because a single player going down in hockey has less of an impact. So that's really the thing about how to handicap that. The Big D in Dallas, yeah, the Big D is going to hammer. You like the Sharks at plus 180. I don't know if I have a read on that one. Actually, I don't like the Sharks in that one. Maybe I'll just talk about that game very quickly. Thank you, sir. Lightning and Philly, those are my only two hockey plays that day. That day I had the Utah Jazz in the NBA. I had 3 wins that day, but I lost in college basketball on who was it again? On Grand Canyon. I was 3-1 that day. That was a nice night for me, and last night was terrible. Probably because I didn't have any. Oh, no, I did have hockey last night. I won on Calgary. My only win last night was hockey. Thank you, Mark. Sharp, I would usually say the way that I use the term sharp, I usually mean like are you getting like the best number, basically? Are you getting in on a number before it moves? That's kind of what I would mean by sharp. But like if you're telling me that you think I'm a good handicapper or whatever, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I've been doing it for quite a long time, and I do have bad days. I mean, last night felt really bad. It felt good at least to get the Calgary win at the end of the night, but it did not feel good otherwise. The Sharks, I'll just point this out that I don't think the Sharks are in a particularly good spot, man. I mean, they're returning home from the East. Or no, they're not returning home yet. Excuse me. Never mind. I thought they were returning home from a road trip. So that it's less bad than what I thought, but they're still, they're coming off a tough game against the Rangers, man. Where they played Philadelphia into overtime the game before that, where that was a game where I had an over and it won in Philadelphia, and Sharks there. Sharks playing a lot of step-up games here, man. Minnesota, New Jersey, and then an overtime game against Philly, even though Philly's not really a great opponent. Then they played the Rangers to within 1 goal, and now they're coming off that playing Pittsburgh. I don't think I would want to take a shot with the Sharks in this one, in my opinion, man. And Pittsburgh, they're coming off that horrendous loss to Columbus. I think they're going to be in a bounce-back spot, even though they aren't a back-to-back. You lose 6-2 to Columbus, man, that's embarrassing. Like, you're going to want to bounce back from that. So I disagree with you on that one. I would lean to the Pittsburgh side in that one, even though they are in a back-to-back and a third game in 4 days. Going to Columbus is not much of a travel spot, really, man. Pittsburgh to Columbus, it's an easy trip, and still, that game, I mean, that was such an ugly game. And that was with Jarry in net, though. I mean, I don't know what their goaltending situation is, but I highly doubt that he's going to be their goalie again in this one. So they're going to have a better goalie than Jarry or Jarry back in net here. Jarry is a little bit jarring to have him in net, so I assume it's going to be Nedeljkovic again in this one, or maybe Bloomquist. I don't know. They're rotating so many goalies in and out here, but they should have a better goalie than Jarry in there because he's their worst goalie. So I don't agree with that. I actually like the Pittsburgh side in that one. Pittsburgh is down from 210 to 201, minus 210 to minus 201, but 64% of the tickets, 74% of the cash. So it does look like some of the cash, as far as this read is concerned, is on the Pittsburgh side. If I was going to play that, it would probably be the Pittsburgh puck line, minus 1.5 goals, just to win the game by margin against San Jose. I apologize, Mark, for disagreeing with you on that. Or I shouldn't apologize. So that's just the way that I think about that. My other play to close this video out here is the over in New Jersey, Tampa. and it's over 6 minus 105 is what I found on this one. This line is dropping, though, so you might get an even better price. Maybe not. I don't know if it's going to go down to 5.5. 5.5 would be real nice, though. 6.5 juice to the under is where it opened. It's down to 6 juice to the under. So it looks like this is moving towards the under, and I don't care. I don't agree with it. So hopefully I don't get caught fading the market read in this one. But this is two teams in bad spots, man, where I think they might not show up with total defensive intensity in this one, even though I know both teams are pretty good teams. So they are both potentially going to be focused against each other, but I think New Jersey is still flying a bit under the radar. And for New Jersey, if they're going to not focus on one of these opponents between Florida, Carolina, Washington, and Tampa, which one of these teams are they going to have the least focus on? Tampa is sitting almost around like 500. Yeah, it's probably going to be Tampa. It's going to be the one team that they might not throw their full effort at. They're coming off sweeping Florida 2 straight games, and not only sweeping them, but blowing them out. So this has got to be a letdown, man. They've already had a massively successful road trip down to Florida. I don't think they care that much about this Tampa game. And they got Carolina up next, although it isn't for 5 days. That's a big game. And then Washington up off of that. I think they're in a letdown spot. I don't think it's a good spot for them. They've been alternating Allen and Markstrom, so I believe it will be Markstrom in this game. But I will talk about the goalies in 1 second. But I don't think it matters which goalie they have in net, really. And then Tampa on the other side, they're coming off a monumental win over Winnipeg, man, in that game that I had them against Winnipeg. So I think they're in a letdown spot coming off of that, even though, yes, it did halt their losing momentum there. That was a huge game for them, though. So I think New Jersey is in the worst spot, so I would also lean to the Tampa Bay side, even though New Jersey has flipped from plus 100 to minus 111. 72% of the tickets on them, 90% of the cash. I had mentioned, because one of you guys asked who my dark horse was in hockey, and I said I thought New Jersey is a legitimate contender who's flying under the radar. I still feel that way. And the line does actually look like the odds makers are telling you New Jersey is the better team over Tampa, being a favorite on the road. But the public is also coming in on them because their record is better than Tampa's. But in this spot, I'm not sure I agree with it. But because I think both teams are in bad spots here, I'm going with the over. And as far as Tampa Bay's goaltender situation, goalie situation, I don't think it matters which goalie is going to be in net. I think it is going to be Vasilevsky again because he's a grinder, and they play him like 4 or 5 games in a row. Usually no problem, especially they had a huge rest coming into this game against Winnipeg. So, of course, it's going to be Vasilevsky again. What am I saying? Now, they've only played 1 game in the last week plus, basically. So, Vasilevsky will be in net again here. He's their better goalie, but I don't even think it matters that much. And looking at these teams last year, Vasilevsky played twice against New Jersey last year, and Markstrom, who I think was on Calgary last year, played 1 game against Tampa, and all 3 of those games went over. So I don't know if that matters that much. It's a small sample size, but I think Vasilevsky and Markstrom were on the winning side of those overs every time, though. So they didn't play particularly poorly in net in any of them. But I'm going to roll with the over in that one anyway. And that is going to do it for me, man. Oh, what's up, Charles? Never apologize. That's right. Be a Chad. Nate wanted to talk hockey. I don't know. Was it Nate that wanted to talk it? I don't know. Hopefully he's still hanging around. Nate is one of my most loyal viewers, man. He's always in the live chats. All right. That's going to do it for me, man. So I have a ton of plays today. It is a huge day with 11 plays. Once again, in college football, Colorado minus 11, but the best you can probably do now is minus 13.5. Florida plus 4, and Stanford plus 21. Those are the 3 hockey plays. Or hockey, excuse me. Those are the 3 college football plays. College basketball, 6 plays. Wofford plus 26.5. Although I think that line's down to 25, but either way. UMBC money line minus 105. Abilene Christian minus 1.5. Long Beach State minus 4.5. Sorry, Abilene Christian minus 1.5. Long Beach State minus 4.5. I go through these 2 quickly. Liberty minus 1.5. UMass minus 5.5. And then in hockey, 2 overs in New Jersey, Tampa Bay over 6, or whatever the best you can get is. That's a reduced juice, at least, for that one. And Columbus, I always say CJB. It's CBJ, the BJs. Hold on. Columbus Blue Jackets. Why do I always type that wrong? It's because I don't like typing BJ, man. No blowjobs. Columbus and Montreal over 6.5. That's going to do it for me, finally. A long Saturday morning video, man. big time Saturday card here. Big college basketball, 11 plays. I want to at least go 6-5, man. I mean, come on, let's not have a detrimentally bad day here, but let's have a good day. Let's win today. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for hanging out, Mark. Everybody, thanks for hanging out, man. Charles, yeah, I'm cold now with the no BJs. Yeah, all you guys have been hanging out, man. Thank you guys a lot for hanging out in the chat. Nate, back there, you were hanging out, and a couple of you other guys there. Shannon, thank you. Andrew, thank you. And who else was in? Rich and Zach, the hairless master there, and George back at the top of the show. Thank you guys for all hanging out. I'm Tower Gang Toad, of course. Follow me on Twitter and follow the Tower Gang podcast. Subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/Tower Gang. You can get live pre-show and post-show for bonus content, hang out with us in a Telegram, and you get to submit to the mailbag, and you have to try to beat Mark Vestibule and have a better mailbag submission than he does every week. That's going to do it, man. Tower Gang Toad, the Tower Gang podcast, of course, and I will be back tonight. I will be doing an NFL show, as usual, tonight. Shannon, yeah, she's always flirting with me, man. Shannon is a very pretty older lady. I apologize for referring to her as older because I'm not that young. She's older than I am, but she would refer to herself that way. I'm too old, Toady. No, she's a very pretty lady. All right, that's going to do it for me. But yes, I'll be back tonight, probably around midnight. I'll do the NFL show. NFL is way easier for me because it's only 16 games or less when they're a bye, so it's easy for me to focus on NFL. I have 2 plays that are for sure are already happening in the NFL, and one that I think I'm still going to play, even though I think it's maybe a little bit iffier than I thought it was. So either 2 or 3 plays probably in the NFL, unless I see something else, but 2 definitively. That's going to do it for me, man. Have a good one, and I'll be back with you for that NFL show tonight. No sleep, baby. No time for sleep. Peace out, guys. Thank you.